Look, as I mentioned at the top of the show, the Albanese government's commitment to the Indigenous Voice of the Parliament is starting to face some serious hurdles. There are reports today of a surprise alliance between two prominent Indigenous Australians, Greens Senator for Victoria Lidia Thorpe and former Liberal candidate, former ALP National President Warren Mundine. Now, is it an alliance? Well, I'm not so sure. Late this afternoon, perhaps fearing backlash or maybe an association with Conservatives, Lidia Thorpe went out in the media and said, "I'll not be campaigning no." That doesn't mean she's campaigning yes. So what next? Director of the Indigenous Forum at the Centre for Independent Studies, Warren Mundine, joins me now. Well, you are a braver man than me, having a meeting with Lidia Thorpe. You both have issues clearly with the voice to the Parliament, Warren. I suspect you're coming at very different perspectives on this. How did the meeting go?
Look, we spoke, and it wasn't only me and Lydia, there were other people in the room, that when we spoke about, you work on what you agree on. Now, look, you look at 100 things, probably 99 we wouldn't agree on. And I'll give you an example. Nuclear power, I'm very strong on nuclear power. The Greens and Lydia don't support nuclear power. But, that doesn't stop you from working together. Now, last year, I worked on the class action legislation that the Morrison government wanted to put up. We tried to help them get a good outcome, but they just refused to work with us. And of course, as people know, I work on the stolen wages cases for Aboriginal people who had their wages taken off them between the 1900 and 1970. And so I sat and spoke with the Labor Party, I sat and spoke with the crossbenchers, I sat and spoke with the Greens, and I sat and spoke with backbenchers and everything like that, and even spoke with Pauline Hanson's group, and we were able to get that legislation canned. So when I see bad legislation, I will always work against it. And where I see good legislation, I'll always work for it. And I'll talk to anyone and everyone to get an outcome.
Well, I think that's the right way to go. That used to be the way people in Parliament worked, less so, I reckon, in the last 10 or so years. As I've observed this debate over the past couple of months, I reckon you have pretty much only strengthened your opposition to the voice. Tell us why you can't support it, Warren.
Well, it's a very simple thing. It's our culture. It's about our culture. I've been out even to Uluru where the statement from the heart come from, and traditional owners have pulled me inside and said to me that this is not our culture. No, our culture is that Warren Mundine cannot speak about Uluru and that because that is not his country. And they could not speak about the north coast of New South Wales, Bundjalung country, because that is not their country. So my major concern is that where we got to a stage where businesses and governments and Aboriginal traditional owners have worked together very strongly in regard to getting benefits and outcomes on their country. Now we're going to have a voice in Canberra, which is going to be, is that going to be cutting across that? Is that going to be the sole person? And when you look at the Uluru statement from the heart, it talks about a Makarrata commission, which says that they will manage these things. Well, I think Aboriginal people out there, traditional owner people, have been managing these things quite well. And the proof of the pudding in that is that there are thousands of Aboriginals working in the mining and energy industry, and that there are over a couple of thousand businesses now working within the mining and energy industry, and that has had enormous outcomes for Aboriginal people. And you look at the previous coalition government when I was working as chair of the Prime Minister's Advisory Council to Abbott and to Turnbull. We put up the IPP. Now that $6.7 million in 1st of July 2015 is now over a $6 billion money going to Aboriginal businesses on merit, and so that's created thousands of Aboriginal jobs as well as thousands of Aboriginal. So my thing is why. So that's where it should be done, at the grassroots level, at that level. And that's why I'm a very strong advocate for negotiations between Aboriginals on the ground and businesses and governments who want to build roads or dams or mines or power stations or whatever on their country.
Warren Mundine, keep up the fight, because I think it's bad on principle and it'll never deliver the practical outcomes that you've been fighting for, as you went through just then, for a long time for Aboriginal people. Thank you.